As the doors open to show the press room in the White House, Mr. Rump says,
"Thank you all for coming out, as we have a lot of very important things to be discussed. I just want to say before we start that we just spent quite a bit of time inside with the Senate Majority Leader, Rich McDonald, who's been a friend of mine for a long time, long before my world of politics, early into his world of politics, I think. But we've been friends for a long time. I have friends, don't you worry. We have made lots of negotiations with many different countries concerning many different things. We, myself and my staff, have been very successful in the first few months of my great presidency."
Now, as soon as Mr. Rump finished his monologue, the reporter's hand shot up immediately. But Mr. Rump, what about the economy?
Well, I'll tell you, I'm great at that. The economy is booming largely in part to my sponsor, the NGA. More and more Americans have jobs at the expense of the environmental committee I just got rid of. It was hurting my presidential, reputation. And if it hurts me, it hurts America.
All of President Rump's cabinet members clapped, as the reporter stared blankly. Rump's press secretary whispered into his ear, and although it was inaudible to the reporters, we can assume she said,
"Friendly reminder, sir, please stay on message in order to not expose your corruptness."
Mr. Rump turns to his right and gives his press secretary a cold, long stare, moments before firing her.
"Don't interrupt me! You're fired!"
Right this way, ma'am?
But...
After the incident, another reporter speaks up. Mr. Rump, taking into consideration the amount of money that you are getting from big businesses such as Malwart, ExxonMobil, Soft Corporation of Micro, and Rump Incorporated, what gives us any reason to believe that you are looking to make decisions that would benefit the common man, the working class, the children, and the poor opposed to these big businesses? Mr. Rump looks to another hand and calls on someone else. Yes, Mr. Rump. With the overflowing immigrants issues, I am concerned that you do not have a valid plan that would efficiently work and help regulate the influx of immigrants. Dude, my grandfather didn't travel all the way from Europe to have this country taken over by immigrants. Mr. Rump likes the question and decides to answer it, with his corrupt agenda blatantly showing.
"I'm glad you asked that. It fits my agenda perfectly. And I love those questions. They make me seem like a good president. So I'll tell you my plan. We're going to take them and make them build a very tall fence, and then have them stay inside the enclosure until I deem necessary. Nothing like this has ever happened before, especially not in Europe in the 1940s. We are also going to enact experiments on them, so we can make sure the lives of us Americans be the best they can be without hurting us. This is totally legal, by the way. I own all the politicians that could pass laws stopping me anyways. Thank you for asking that exquisite question."
As soon as Mr. Rump stops, a barrage of hands flew into the air. Pens ready to take notes, cameras taking his picture over and over. And as soon as he calls on another reporter, his new press secretary comes to whisper in his ear.
Sir, we should stop this conference now. It's getting oddly blunt that you are not following the rules of democracy. This could possibly hurt your ratings, but with everything else you've done, I think it'll be okay. But I strongly suggest we end this now.
As President Rump receives this information, he puts up his hand to silence her, and then calls on another reporter. Lately, we've been experiencing lots of problems in the way of minority rights, such as African Americans and whether allowed to work, gays and the rights to the military, and the elderly with healthcare. What are your plans on combating these issues?
Yes, indubitably. This is a good time to end the conference. Goodbye, everybody.